You're watching Bill on Bankruptcy. I'm Lee Pacchia. I'm joined now, as always, by Bloomberg News bankruptcy columnist Bill Rochelle. Be sure to go read his daily bankruptcy column. It's available on BloombergLaw.com, and it's also on the Bloomberg Terminal. Bill, welcome.
Good day.
So, Bill, starting off with American Airlines, the bankruptcy judge in that case just wrote an opinion about the payment of so-called make-whole premiums on debt secured by aircraft belonging to debtor American Airlines. What is a make-whole premium? Why do we care? And if this goes up on appeal, ultimately, how is it going to get decided?
Well, make-whole is important. Wall Street cares a great deal about it. These provisions are contained in many debt instruments. It says that if you pay off a debt before it otherwise would mature, you compensate the people if they had lost a good bargain, that is to say, if interest rates have declined. AMR wants to refinance $1.3 billion and not pay what would be huge make-whole premium. Mm-hmm. Bankruptcy Judge Sean Lane agreed with AMR and said no make-whole is required. The judge wrote a really excellent opinion up until, I think, the last section of the opinion, dealing with Section 1110 of the Bankruptcy Code, which says that if you decide to keep an aircraft after 60 days in bankruptcy, the aircraft owner has to abide by all of the provisions in the debt instrument. Somehow, Judge Lane was able to conclude that paying the make-whole premium as provided for in this debt instrument was not one of the provisions that an airline has to comply with. Ergo, I conclude that when this thing goes up on appeal, there is going to be a decent chance of success. And frankly, that is what the bond market is telling, because these bonds, which were about at 108 cents on the dollar, didn't trade off terribly much when this decision came down, tells me that these folks believe there's a good chance of success on appeal.
All right. And for the case of the week, we have something really interesting. Bill, we've spoken before about how owning a closely held company can be kind of lucrative. However, New England compounding was an extremely lucrative business for the owners until the company shipped out a contaminated shipment, went on to cause fungal meningitis, stuff like that. Just how lucrative was the business before it ended up in court? Bankruptcy court.
I tell you, Lee, when I read these papers, I fell out of my chair. Thank goodness I had arms.
It's a messy story.
Or I would have hit the floor. This business, New England Compounding, now in bankruptcy, as you said, had $32 million of revenue last year, 2012. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't believe it when they filed schedules with the bankruptcy court saying that the four owners of this privately held company took out, get this, Lee, more than $16 million in that one year. In other words, more than or approximately half of revenue. And in addition to that, I'm told there was another $3 million that they took out in that year. Also, this may perhaps explain why they were not able to keep that facility clean enough to be able to produce pharmaceuticals that didn't kill people, because the allegation here is, and of course it is simply an allegation at this point, that maybe 45 people died and more than 600 were sickened with fungal meningitis because they received this contaminated product.
Bill, where is this case?
This is in Boston. Mm-hmm. There will be a hearing, I think it is the 24th or thereabouts of January, for appointment of a trustee. And get this, Lee, the creditors committee, newly appointed, has given notice that they want to freeze the assets of these four owners. This is an unusual event in any bankruptcy case. It is one that would not surprise me in the least here, given the damage that has been done to a whole lot of people, and also, of course, as we just said, the amount of money that was taken out.
Finally, we're going to close out with something on the advance sheets. Bill, we were talking before about Sentinel Management and an important decision limiting the safe harbor for securities transactions in bankruptcy. I understand we have further developments.
Yes, we do. What we expected, an appeal, and it's going to happen. This is a really, really big deal. It involves what's called the safe harbor in bankruptcy. For those of you who know what that means, I need say nothing more. For those of you who don't, bankruptcy law contains some really important provisions which say that certain types of securities transactions cannot be set aside, challenged, revoked, or damaged whatsoever if there is a later bankruptcy. This makes trustees and debtors unable to bring lawsuits in many situations. The U.S. Court of Appeals, in New York, held about a year ago that this decision, or this section, should be given very broad interpretation. There was, however, the first crack that appeared in the case of Sentinel Management in Chicago, where District Judge Zagel said that he was not going to permit a safe harbor defense, even though it might fall within the four corners of the statute. This case is going up on appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit in Chicago. That notice of appeal was filed, and this is a very good place for it to go because, believe me, Lee, the judges on the Seventh Circuit are the most independent of anywhere in the country, perhaps outside of the Ninth Circuit. You'll remember that it was the Seventh Circuit, for instance, that made the Radlax decision going against two other circuit courts on the question of credit bidding, and guess what? The Supreme Court agreed with the Seventh Circuit. So sit back, tighten your seatbelts, stay tuned for probably 9 months to a year. This will be the biggest and most important safe harbor decision since the Enron case from the Seventh Circuit, as I said, about a year ago.
All right, Bill, thanks for that. That's Bloomberg News bankruptcy columnist Bill Rochelle. If you'd like to learn more about the cases and issues we just discussed, be sure you go read his column. It's available on BloombergLaw.com, and it's also on the Bloomberg Terminal. I'm Lee Pacchia. Thanks for watching. See you next week.